Money FM 89.3, the best of Saturday mornings.
International News Review.
Time for our International News Review. Steve Okun joining us, the CEO of APAC Advisors. Steve, welcome to the era of President Felon Trump.
Yes, we now officially have our first president or president-elect in the United States who is a felon. And not surprisingly, Donald Trump framed that hearing where he got sentenced as a win. He said that the sentence leaves him unpunished for his felony conviction, which is true, and it means that the radical Democrats have lost another pathetic, un-American witch hunt.
Oh, very good.
By a jury of his peers on 34 counts of illegal doing that anybody else would have been convicted on as well.
But I thought the judge's comments were interesting. He issued a sentence of unconditional discharge, meaning he'll be released without fine and imprisonment, but essentially said, I have to do this because you're the incoming president. But make no mistake, these charges are very, very serious. That was the tone from the judge. Will it make any difference at this point, to use that phrase, cut through? It seems to have just generated a rueful shrug, Steve.
Yeah, look, and I thought the judge, handled it very well. Who'd been just crushed, his family crushed, and gone after by the then former president. And he closed the hearing by saying, Sir, Donald Trump, sir, I wish you Godspeed as you assume a second term in office. And so I think the judge...
And Trump hung up without saying anything, right? He was on the video.
Well, that was the video, and then the video ends. And but Trump's point, which is correct, and in one of his truths, his version of Twitter, or X, is said, the real jury, the American people, have spoken by re-electing me with an overwhelming mandate in one of the most consequential elections in history. As the American people have seen, this quote-unquote case had no crime, no damages, no proof, no facts, no law. So all of that part isn't true, but he is right. A majority of the American people, or at least a plurality, and certainly a majority who voted in that plurality, gave him a second term, and he's got a second term, and he is a convicted felon, but will face no penalty for it other than what's going to be in the history books.
It'll stay on his record, though.
In the history books. Yep. He'll go down as the first convicted felon.
So if he wants to do certain things in the future, I think after the presidency, he's denied that, right, as a felon?
No, not in most states. No.
Not in Florida, especially.
Not in Florida, especially. No, and not in most states. And now, as the Supreme Court held in the case United States versus Trump last July, anything he does as president in his official act, he can't be convicted for. So he's got a get out of jail free card for the rest of his life, presumably because of what's happened here. So a big win for him. But we did get, the history books will show that he is a felon.
Malaysia and Singapore announced on Tuesday an agreement on a special economic zone in southern Malaysia, in Johor, as we all know, aiming to support investment and free up movement of good and people between the countries. They had talked about this over a year ago, but now it looks like it's finally happening. What's this going to mean for us, Steve?
Well, I think if we say, is this a big deal, little deal, or no deal, I say, who knows? For those of us who've lived here a long time, including the three of us, we've heard about, Singapore, Singapore and Bintan, or Singapore and Batam, we're going to have the special economic zone. And then there was going to be Iskander was going to be the big solution. And now we have this one. Hopefully it will work because Singapore has the financing. It has the headquarters of the companies that need land, that need people, that need to do investing. Malaysia's got the land. Malaysia, could have the infrastructure. So it could work. It could be a big deal. But a lot of businesses and investors are saying, will Malaysia and Singapore be able to put in place what is going to be necessary for a special economic zone to attract Singapore money, Singapore financing, which is global money and global financing, into Malaysia, where you don't have anything yet in terms of the infrastructure. So Glenn, maybe a big deal and maybe not a big deal.
So what could it look like? What would that mean? There would be no tariffs, there would be no
tax
taxes,
breaks.
There would be, like, what would that actually mean? Singapore companies would set up a plant in JB, or, like, what's the point?
Well, a special economic zone, I mean, as they would normally work in a given country, which a lot of countries have special economic zones, and then you are exempt. You might be exempt from customs rules. You might be exempt from certain taxes. I mean, it's a way to attract investment that wouldn't otherwise go there. That is why it is a special economic zone, exempt from whatever those rules or laws would apply elsewhere in that given country. What makes this one different, of course, is it's a special economic zone in two countries simultaneously. And so now you are going to need, it's going to be complicated, because you're going to have to have that, smooth sailing between two different countries. Can you just go back and forth between Singapore and Malaysia into those special economic zones without needing to get, for example, a, Malaysian immigration visa? Or are you going to need one if you're coming from Malaysia into Singapore? If the investment is here, are you now going to be subject to tax in Malaysia that you wouldn't be otherwise? Who's going to be paying if you're attracting all of this Singapore investment? Is the Malaysian government going to be putting in the infrastructure that's necessary? And right now, that's where businesses are looking at, because the projects are being done, or I should say the special economic zone is being done on a project-by-project basis. So the roads aren't there, the sewers aren't there, the electricity's not there, and so it becomes a chicken and an egg. Until the government puts it in, the investors aren't going to go. So a lot needs to get done, but yeah, it's a good first announcement, but people are watching it.
I always look at it from the social economic perspective. There were concerns raised during the press conference that Malaysians may end up just getting the lower paid manufacturing jobs, whereas Singaporeans will earn the more higher paid skilled jobs. Could there be a potential socio-economic backlash between the two countries on this issue? You've got this economic zone with two countries united on these different areas, but you've got one side clearly earning more money than the other.
No, and that's what's going to make this complicated because you've now got to have some type of synergies between these two governments. I mean, the Malaysians are going to say, why isn't this investment coming into Malaysia now? And we're going to create the special economic zone to attract it, but it's not going to be the same as if it were straight at Malaysian FDI, foreign direct investment going into Malaysia, but it's not there now. So you have to be willing to make some trade-offs, and that's the question is, will Malaysia be willing to make those trade-offs? And will the laws that apply in Singapore, which attracts so much money to this place, the rule of law, the courts, the certainty of your investment,
IP protection,
all of that,
and efficiency as well.
Is that going to apply to you in Malaysia? And are you willing to take know that what you would have put here is going to apply to you there? That's why it hasn't worked yet. It didn't work in Batam. Iskander didn't get there. Maybe this one will. But as Neil, you point, there's questions that are very political that need to get addressed, not just legal.
Okay, we can't answer those today, but we will keep an eye on that story and bring you more as it develops. Now let's move on to the tech bros. Meta says it will get rid of fact checkers, so that includes Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, dramatically reduce the amount of censorship. Mark Zuckerberg says that it's not needed anymore, that free speech, he wants to prioritize free speech after the return of Donald Trump to the White House. What's this all about?
Well, I think part of it is there's a very good case that Zuckerberg is making, although President Biden said he finds it shameful that Meta is getting rid of its fact-checking program. I think there can be sympathy to Meta and to others in terms of fact-checking. Who's to say whether something should or should not be allowed onto a platform? And this is an open public platform. People are posting their opinions. Where does that opinion cross from being permitted to not permitted? And Facebook got into a lot of trouble for doing this because it was always seen, correctly or not, as being biased against Republicans, against conservatives. And so, you know what Elon Musk did earlier and what Zuckerberg is doing now is saying, we're not going to do it. We're going to let the community do it. And we're going to let the community to decide what context things are and should not be in. So there are certain things that will be restricted. But when it comes to opinion, then open it up to the community. Biden finds it shameful. I'm sympathetic.
Really? I mean, you're in geopolitics and ESG. You know that's a bit disingenuous. Whether we like it or not, many millions, tens, hundreds of millions get their news, in inverted commas, now from social media. And it was thanks to journalists, real journalists who do all that fact-checking and stuff, that they uncovered large-scale media manipulation campaigns run by Cambridge Analytica and Russia's Internet Research Agency, and they weaponized Facebook. This has been proven for political ends during the 2016 US election and Brexit. We all know this, right? Sheryl Sandberg, as a response to that, brought in an oversight board, which is now, she's now gone. Nick Clegg, the former UK Deputy Prime Minister and head of Meta's public affairs, he talked about banning Trump indefinitely in 2021. He's now gone. And who's he been replaced by? A friend called Joel Kaplan, who's been on Fox News all week praising Donald Trump. Is Meta now just a pawn in Trump's political game?
Is Meta trying to gain favor with Donald Trump? 100%. There's no question about that. And Donald Trump, when Donald Trump was asked, is what Facebook doing because they are afraid of you? And basically, Donald Trump said, yes, Meta is afraid of me, and that the threats against Zuckerberg is probably what is causing Facebook to do this. So there is no question that this is in response to Trump. There's no question that when they roll it out on Fox News, they do that for a reason. There's no question when Zuckerberg says something totally ridiculous, like we're going to move our moderators from California to Texas.
To Texas, yeah.
I mean, of course, that's a joke, and he's playing totally into trying to curry favor with one person, who, of course, is the convicted felon soon to become president. But the question then becomes, that doesn't mean that it is not really, really difficult when you are looking at opinions to say, who is to decide what does and doesn't go on when there are millions and millions and millions and millions of these posts? How do you do it?
Fair point, but there's a legitimate moral concern, isn't there? That this could open the floodgates for hateful speech, insightful speech, and it's the most vulnerable communities, whether it's the immigrants or LGBTQ plus communities. Those are the two most groups most likely to be affected. Don't these vulnerable groups need more protection?
It doesn't say that there's everything goes, that there are still things content related to illegal drug use, child exploitation, terrorism. All of that is still going to be banned. It's more on the opinions, the political speech, and what Zuckerberg was talking about, certainly during COVID, where there would be postings that, well, COVID vaccines have side effects. And the way Zuckerberg tells it, and the way he was telling it to Joe Rogan, was that the Biden administration was cursing and screaming at Facebook employees, telling them to take that down. That you cannot be saying that COVID vaccines have side effects because we need everybody to get these vaccines. And Zuckerberg saying, it is true that COVID vaccines have side effects. You are asking us to take down things that are true for political reasons, and Zuckerberg saying, we're not going to do that anymore. So there are elements of what he is saying. That it becomes very difficult to say this is allowed, this isn't allowed, when it comes to things that are even factual.
Yeah, but I watched Zuckerberg's thing, and this stuck in my head, and I don't know what degree it's going to actually be put into place, but it's more like we're going to let people decide, and we're going to let people call out the fake news and things like that.
Which is working well on X.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. And we're also living in an age where we know that there's bots out there that generate controversial topics and poke people to think certain ways. And he didn't mention anything about stopping that or addressing that. So, I don't know.
But part of it is, look, the market's going to solve some of this because X, which is now a cesspool compared to what it used to be, has lost a lot of advertising because there is so much, hateful
But Elon doesn't care. Elon can fund that till the end of time.
But
right?
Look, X is a privately held company,
right.
and if Elon's banks want to let him, drive down the value of it, that's one thing. Meta is not a privately held company; it is a publicly traded company. Now, he's, of course, Zuckerberg's changing the board. Now, all of a sudden, we've gone from having, a very diverse board to having, people like Dana White and others who are Donald Trump's friends on the board. And so let's find out how the governance works and if the market is still going to apply to Facebook and make them do certain things that Elon Musk doesn't have to worry about because he's got a privately held company.
I would just say never trust a man who's got hair like a 1970s disco dancer. What on earth has Zuckerberg done to his hair? He needs a hair checker. Never mind a fact checker.
More than a few comedians took aim at him for this video he did this week about how he was dressed and how he looked. Okay, let's move on. Back here at home in Singapore, they have passed a landmark anti-discrimination bill for workers, what they're calling a landmark, the Workplace Fairness Bill, will protect workers against discrimination after extensive debate and calls for more groups of workers to be included. What is the scope of this? Who will be protected? Who won't be protected? What's the point here, Steve?
I mean, this is where the government has come in and said we are going to mandate what it would normally be a free contract between employers and employees. We're going to say you can hire whoever you want for your business, but you can't discriminate in 5 specific categories in Singapore. You can't discriminate on age. You can't discriminate on nationality. You can't discriminate on sex, race or religion, or a disability or a mental health condition. So that is where you cannot discriminate. But you can discriminate where it is not listed. And so there was a lot of debate where you read in the in the media and LGBTQ, you are allowed to discriminate in hiring practices. You may not be allowed to discriminate in other areas, but you can still do that now. And so this is where Singapore is drawing the line of where you can and cannot discriminate in terms of this law.
Yeah, our good friend of the show, Louis Ng, who's the MP for Nee Soon, he said just that. He said that studies have shown that employees in those areas, in those communities you mentioned, not just LGBTQ, but also in areas of disability, they already face significant workplace discrimination. Is this bill going to change that?
It will not change it on this bill. There may be other rules that are out there for why people for what's in employment contracts, but not in this legislation. And there were examples that were given in the newspaper where if somebody came in and was interviewing and then they referred to their partner. Now, if they referred to their partner and then it turned out to be a same-sex partner, obviously not married here, but a same-sex partner, then you could say, I don't want you to work for me. And so that is where the line is drawn here. In other countries, the line is drawn in different places. And what the government has said and what Parliament has said is this is going to be our start. And yes, we may look at things going forward in a different way, but for now, this is where the line is going to be. And this was clearly debated as part of the context as to what would not be included in this case.
It's very interesting to read the comments from Parliament, from the different ministers and parliamentarians and members of Parliament, I should say.
And I would just say, and I remember when I came here, and I would sit in on, when I first came here more than 20 years ago, and would sit in on company decision making as to, who should we give a promotion to? I mean, people would be very clear and they would say, well, that guy's too old. And we don't want to give him a promotion because he's just going to retire, so let's give it to a younger person. Right? You can't do that anymore. I mean, so those are the types of decision-making that a business would say, well, we want to do strictly what's in the best interest for the business, and that is going to be to promote a younger person. It might be this person we'd rather have a man do this job than a woman do that job. You can't do that under this law in Singapore. So it addresses real things, and these are things that business do. Businesses will discriminate. Now, you want to have businesses have the right to fire somebody if they're not doing a good job. You want them to have the right to hire who they want to hire with because this is somebody that they want to work with. But you have to have these lines that are drawn on where you can't discriminate, and it's clear you can't discriminate on age, you can't discriminate on sex, but you can You can discriminate if you want in other areas that this law doesn't cover, and LGBTQ is the one that's gotten the most attention that I've seen for sure.
Still, good news for us, Glenn. We can't be discriminated on age anymore. According to Steve, we could be promoted.
Loretta, are you listening?
Is anybody listening? You can't fire us, even though we're both over 50 now. You hear that?
No, Neil, I think you have to be very concerned with your humor level as a reason for termination.
I've had that issue for 20 years.
Humor levels are not covered under this new anti-discrimination bill, because some of you just say, you're just not funny
You're
anymore.
just not funny. I can live
You're
with that.
out of here.
I've had that for 25 years.
And let me just say, the way you pronounced Phuket in the last segment could get you terminated immediately.
Phuket.
Phuket?
No, Phuket.
Who says Phuket?
Me, I do it.
Nobody. You're fired.
Okay, I can
You're
live with it.
fired.
You don't pronounce
You're
Batam.
fired.
You don't pronounce Batam properly. It's not
Batam?
It's not.
Batam.
It's Batam.
No.
You're pronouncing the wrong syllable. Listeners, back me up on this. WhatsApp 88550893. I know I'm going to win this one.
Phuket.
I know I'm going to win this one.
But if I'm wrong, you're more. If I'm wrong, you're more ridiculous.
Two-syllable words
You are
have
more.
to be. The pronunciation has to be on the first syllable.
No,
Yes, it
it's
does.
Phuket.
It's called word
not
stress,
Phuket.
my friend. It's called word stress.
Well, not in
Batam.
Thailand. It's not. Phuket.
Isn't it? It's not Batam.
88550893. Batam.
Just put in
Indonesians
Neil or
pronounce it
Steve.
as Batam.
Just
Okay.
put Neil or Steve. Whose side are you on? That's
I'm
all
saying
we need to know.
Phuket.
I know I'm
though.
going to win that one. But the Phuket one I might lose. But the Batam one I know I'm going to win. Yeah.
That just got more energy from us than any of the other stories
anything
we've
else.
just covered.
Yeah, but we'll save the best till last.
Quickly, we've got to get through this last one. Singapore airport police have warned potential criminals to not take chances on board aircraft amid growing in-flight thefts, at least the ones that are being reported. Airlines in the Asia Pacific have raised concern over the issue in recent months after some jurisdictional issues have been raised. So people get stuff stolen on a flight from A to B. Who is responsible for adjudicating that from a legal standpoint?
Well, I might get clear. Has anyone from Singapore, the Singapore police force, who's issuing these statements, flown? Because their recommendation to passengers is your baggage should be locked and kept in line of sight. Mm. Do you know how many times Singapore Airlines will tell you you've got to put your baggage up outside of your line of sight for safety reasons? You can't have your baggage in line of sight. That cannot be the recommendation. The recommendation has to be to passengers, don't bring valuable things on an airplane. Because if you bring valuable things...
That you can't keep on your person.
That you can't keep on your person, literally in your pocket. Yeah. Because... And that is just what happens when you fly. Now, fortunately, we have a very different culture in Singapore than we'd have in the U.S., and you can get away with a little bit more in trusting your fellow passengers, but you can only trust them so far. And you cannot expect the flight attendants to be the police force. You can't expect the flight attendants to be out there looking at when somebody's going through a bag, is that their bag or is it somebody else's bag? It is your job as a passenger to make sure you don't bring anything valuable on, and if you do, keep it on your body, because you're just asking for trouble. It's too hard to put the onus on the airlines to fix this.
I'm interested from a legal standpoint. I'm a thief on a plane. I steal something. Where's the jurisdiction? Where do I get arrested?
Okay, if you are on a Singapore-registered aircraft, then you are subject to Singapore law if you are going to be stealing something. Now, if you land in the UK, the Singapore Airlines cannot force the UK police to arrest you. So you're probably going to walk free, because I don't know how much, it depends which country you're going to, which government is regulations, because they're going to the ones, Singapore doesn't have any jurisdiction over you when you've landed. Yeah, you violated Singapore law, but that's it. Now, if you're landing in Singapore, I don't care if you're on a Singapore flight and it's over international airspace and you take somebody's money out of a backpack. Yeah, you're going to get arrested here. So it depends where you land. It's not where it occurred. It depends where the aircraft is registered. But again, don't take that chance. I mean, you read, on, there was a flight not that long ago on Scoot from Vietnam. Somebody gets $20,000 stolen from a black messenger bag. What are you doing with $20,000 in a black messenger bag?
Exactly.
That's not on your body.
In small unmarked bills.
But I've got to give the final word to our listeners. I'm going to give it to two Singaporeans who said I was absolutely right. I knew I got Phuket wrong, but Batam was right. So we'll call it a draw. Brian Lowe says 1 to me for Batam, 1 to Steve for Phuket. 1-1.
All right, guys. We got to leave it there.
The co-champions, Neil and Steve. I will take it.
Got to run. Thanks, Steve. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.